What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. Dylan Harper. First of all, before we even get into him as a player, do you think the Spurs are just going to take him and just figure it out later?
I do. Yeah, I would expect they just take him. Here's the reason why. If you're the Spurs, you have Victor, you have De'Aaron Fox now, you have, Devin Vassell seemingly. It seems like they're not going to move him. You have all these dudes, right, that are pretty good at basketball around Victor, who we think is probably going to be one of the 5 best players in the league next year, right? Like, you're probably not picking number 2 overall again. And if I'm them, I want to accumulate the elite talent and then just figure it out later, figure out what fits, what doesn't. Honestly, I think Dylan Harper's a better prospect than Steph Castle. So I'm picking Dylan and then figuring out if I have to move Castle later, as opposed to, oh, I have Castle already, let's move down and, not take him in favor of actualizing Castle. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you there. I think, like, in general, I believe, especially considering the tier we were talking about before before we started recording, like, I thought, Con Knipple, if you think of him as like just a big shooter who's really smart and who can pass coming off of screening actions, it's just
Yeah.
so much utility with Victor Wembanyama. There's so many like different things that make sense there, especially on a De'Aaron Fox team. You can imagine him slipping out of guard screens with De'Aaron Fox. There's all these different things you can figure out. But the bottom
Yep.
line is like, if you had to trade Con or you had to trade Dylan, you're going to just get so much more for Dylan. And he's just a substantially better asset that you can move forward with. And the San Antonio Spurs are already going to have to make some sort of roster balancing trade at some point in the future. It's just kind of inevitable. So to your point, you take the asset, you figure it out later. My first takeaway when I watched Dylan today, and I have the jump shot stuff is super interesting with him for me, because there are so many examples of this kind of player in basketball history where an on-ball dominant guard shoots the ball pretty well off the dribble but can't shoot it off the catch. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Shea is this type of guy. And Shea, I actually see
Yeah.
some corollaries between Shea and Dylan. I don't think Dylan has Shea's first step or anything close to it, but what he does
Yeah.
have is like that downhill big guard approach mixed with like Dylan's so good at chaining together counter moves, which kind of reminds me
Yes.
a little bit of
Yes.
Shea. The big thing though with Dylan for me is I feel like his shot is a little down in front of his face and it's got a little bit
Yeah.
of a long load up. And I think that that's super interesting because even in the catch and shoot stuff, he's like deadly when he's open, but it falls off a
Yep.
cliff when he's being guarded. And so to me, like, whether or not he reaches his inevitable upside, his eventual upside will come down to some shot mechanic stuff, like kind
Yeah.
of like making the release a little bit more compact, a little bit more arc, a little bit quicker, those sorts of things. But in terms of just being a big downhill guard that can get to his spots, there's just it's such a rare thing in basketball at his size, and that's what gets me excited about him. Tell everybody why you have Dylan Harper at number 2.
Yeah. So first and foremost, your read on what he needs to improve is dead on, because that's exactly what he's working on pre-draft. Like, I went and saw him work out. Like, that is exactly, he was doing all sorts of pull-up shots off of ball screens, reading this. Okay, defender here. I need to get to my step back to my right and then be able to shoot with balance, going up with force, everything like that. You know what I mean? So all of that is what he's trying to work on. And I think what they see as the next step for him. Enormous frame, first and foremost, 6'4.5", 6'10.5" wingspan, 8'6" standing reach, just like a massive, massive lead guard, right? Uses that size incredibly well to be able to maintain advantages, good at creating that initial advantage with the shiftiness, the creativity of handle. I think we often like think about guys who can like string together moves, maybe not string together moves, but like who have like sudden moves as being these great ball handlers, and oftentimes they are. But I think that what makes Dylan a great ball handler is the creativity that he has in terms of his gathers, in terms of his ability to get from one spot to another with the ball, the creative mindset with which he thinks about stringing moves together. He'll go hesitation, right to left crossover, left to right crossover, take one step forward, spin back off of the defender. He's setting guys up constantly. He's playing the chess match in his head for how he thinks you're going to react before you react, or like before you actually make the decision on how you react, right? But then on top of it, he is actively manipulating you to be able to do those things, right? He just thinks about ball handling and getting to his spots in really, really creative ways at the end of the day.
And that's going to be so important for him because of the first step stuff. Like
Totally.
he's going to have to set defenders up.
But again, like I would argue that Shea like didn't have a monster first step coming out of Kentucky. I thought he had a good first step. It was more the what makes Shea so special. I mean, this is getting into like the really nitty gritty stuff. Like I think Shea's like ankle, like his ability to like put force through his ankles on balance and like be able to maintain balance in such awkward positions is like unlike anything I've ever seen, to be honest. Him being able to like extend through these weird and like split defenders while extending through and navigating all of these bodies in tight. Like that's what makes him special. I think Dylan has some of that. I'm not going to sit here and say like he has like the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander superpower to be able to do that. What I think Dylan is really good at, and this is why he drives so much rim pressure at the end of the day, is that he's really, really good at navigating those bodies on the interior and setting them up in different ways to be able to get to the spots that he wants. Just looking through the numbers here.
Yeah, explain to everyone how rare it is that he gets to the rim as a guard at his age.
Oh, exceptionally rare. Like doesn't happen. Rare, basically. I think there are probably a few. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but like there are a few that got to the rim at this level. I think he took like 5 shots at the rim in half court settings per game this year, despite the fact that Rutgers had like the worst spacing in the history of basketball. And like it was crazy how often
Some
he got
ugly
to the rim.
hoops this morning.
Is some horrendous hoops. Like you understand what I have to watch, Jason. You understand like why whenever we get to the NBA playoffs, I'm just like, this is amazing. Like basketball, it's the best, isn't it, guys? Like this is so good.
Yeah, we
I had
watched
to
a
watch
lot of Rutgers today. Yeah.
I had to watch 1,000 minutes of Rutgers basketball this year. Like this is where we're at. Yeah, just like so good at navigating bodies in the paint. Knows how to find creases at an elite level. Balance is tremendous. Ability to finish both off of 1 or 2 feet. Can go around you if you're longer. He's willing to go and like he goes in straight lines to the rim. He will go through you, go through a defender's chest if he has to get to the rim. Really good at drawing fouls. Got much better at finishing at the basket this year, despite the fact that they had no spacing. 65.3% at the rim, hit over 62% of his layups. That was a big development actually, because he was not always great at that in high school. You could see the potential though. You could see the way that he understood how to use angles, and he would have some like crazy highlight reel finishes in high school, but finished like he was like in the 50s basically, right? In terms of percentages. This year was at 65.3 and really figured out how to use his frame at a really high level. Yeah, catch and shoot, like real shooter is a catch and shoot guy. 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. I think we should talk about the passing real quick as well. I don't think you got to see like crazy passing stuff if you watch the Rutgers tape necessarily. If you go back and watch some like USA basketball stuff, if you go back and watch some AAU stuff, he has some real passing ability that I think we didn't get to see quite as much this year. That he can really make plays, particularly live dribble with his left hand. He's extremely comfortable shooting that ball out with velocity to the corner, to the cross wing. He'll throw lobs at a high, like he just has a real understanding of how to make plays if that's what he's being tasked with doing.
Yeah, his timing stood out to me on both the passing and the scoring front. On the playmaking front, I sometimes felt like he would come off of a screen and face a hard hedge, and I think sometimes I thought he'd get rid of it a touch too quickly or a touch too like on a line instead of on the loft. Sometimes he'd throw that cross court pass when I felt like he could have pressed like just a half second longer to get the low man to commit just a little bit further before he threw it. Like it felt like sometimes the timing of his passing was just a touch off. But again, that could be associated with the spacing that you're talking about. With his scoring ability, the timing is so sharp. And I think this actually plays a big role in his finishing because, like you talked about it, guards miss layups. That's just what they do in basketball, even at the NBA level. Like you're going to see guards make, maybe 55% of their layups because it's just there's so much athleticism around the rim and it's just difficult to finish in traffic in the NBA. I feel like a big part of what made Dylan such a good finisher is just the timing of when he would attack and his change of pace sequences. I think that if he can build out that playmaking piece that you're talking about, and if he can add the refinement to the jump shooting, there's like real legitimate upside there. And I think that's important for people to understand. Like in Sam's tiers here, he's got Cooper as a number one tier, and then he's got Dylan as a number two, which I believe you mean you view him to be a safe bet to be an all-star. Is that correct?
Like, yeah, if I was projecting out like outcomes here, right? The way I think of this all is, and this might come from like having grown up like playing poker and everything like that. Like, I think of it as like, okay, what kind of outcome am I betting on here? Like, if I'm putting my money in betting on an outcome with Dylan Harper, I would say like all star would be my bet on where he ends up settling in. Maybe like a lower end all NBA player. I can see a world where he reaches that status. But if you made me say right now, like I feel better about saying he's going to be like an all star caliber guard.